Okay, hey, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today we have another cool review for you from the brand NOVE watch. Now, a little bit about them. They were founded back in 2015. They're a fashion-oriented Swiss-made watch company, and they're really most known for their combination of ultra-modern, super sleek, and thin, water-resistant wristwatches. Now, this particular type of watch I consider an everyday watch. Some key common characteristics and design language. When you're looking for a watch you can wear every day, of course, you're going to really want that versatile blend of sporty and dressy attributes. Now, this particular model is their Swiss-made Modena automatic, and in particular, it's the H001-02. It has that kind of exotic automotive-inspired theme. Think kind of wide, low-slung Ferrari or Lamborghini. And just imagine that just sitting on your wrist. And that's pretty much what you got here. Their kind of a description for it is it has those great streamlined lugs that frame a minimalist kind of air intake. You also get the brake system like bezel and crown guards. And then, you kind of have an engine heat sink like finish on the dial. And yeah, this thing is just, it kind of represents the next level of a NOVE performance, their words. And I think it's a great representation of where the brand can go. This thing is actually really, really nice. Like, the more time I spend with it, the kind of just the more I find that I like about it, which I think is pretty cool. And the thing actually feels really interesting in the metal, like in hand. It gives you such a different experience than I think you could kind of expect out of this. So I gotta say that was a really cool surprise. These actually go for $670 full retail, but they were able to provide a 10% off code if you want to use the code AverageBros in checkout, which, hey, pretty cool. So with all that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. Okay guys, as you can see, this thing has a lot of very interesting and ornate details. Of course, it does fall within an automotive theme, but I think just generally it adds a lot of visual interest and a lot of texture to an otherwise, pretty simple watch when you kind of break it down, but it just has a lot of really interesting pieces to it, and there's just some fun things to look at. Of course, you do get kind of a brake rotor with caliper style. You get kind of an open frame kind of air intake as they called it. But for me, it's just, really nice craftsmanship. Even apart from the theme, dude, this thing looks exotic. It really, really does. So, is it my cup of tea and what I would design for a watch? No, but who cares what I think? At least when it comes to the perfect watch. I mean, the question is their execution and their vision, how does that work out? And how does it work out for me as somebody if I was a potential person who would wear this watch? And this thing has such cool little surprises. Now, although it's pretty large on paper, you get 44 millimeters wide, guys. That is not a small watch by any means. It's only 12.5 millimeters thick, and that mid case itself is only 8.7 millimeters thick. So that's pretty impressive. And then, yeah, I mean, it's just sweet. Now that lug to lug is going to be 46 millimeters, which is great. You're getting 316L stainless steel. It's brushed and polished. You're getting double domed sapphire with inner air coating. You're also getting very cool notching here on the fixed bezel, which almost feels like it could move. I should say not physically feels like it, but visually feels like it. Just has some motion and movement to it. And then you get this really great, man, look at the knurling on this crown. If I can get the camera to focus, there we go. This crown is an absolute joy to actuate. So I really dig that. And then we go to the back here, guys, and you get another beautifully done double domed sapphire with the same treatment. And it actually, you can see the movement here. not the most common movement. It's actually a really cool one. Guys, this is the Swiss Ronda R150 automatic movement. It has 40 hours of power reserve, a smooth 4 hertz sweep, as you can see, and it's just really nice. Holy smokes, I wish I could, let me see if I can get it. There we go. It's a cool looking movement, guys. So I guess it's meant to really kind of compete against your SW200 or ETA 2824 range. But honestly, it's really handsome and kind of more modern, and I think visually more reminiscent of something you know, like maybe a SW300 or 2890 no, 94. Oh, actually, no, the 94 is the chronograph version. So it would be like, yeah, the 2892, and I think 2893 is GMT. Correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments below. Just referencing kind of ETA movements there. But the Swiss Ronda is actually really cool. And when I say Swiss Ronda, everyone, I know I think quartz, but it's actually pretty cool that they made an automatic. So although maybe not their bread and butter, still a really valiant effort, and it executed really, really well. Now, when we look at this dial, you get that kind of fume mocha dial, very cool, applied indices, polished hands, water resistant to 200 meters, guys. That's pretty serious. I mean, this thing could be used for, you know, really any type of water sports action, and you'd be absolutely fine. Now, would you be able to use it functionally as a dive watch? Probably not, just because of the lack of lume or a dive time bezel. But if this thing fell off of your boat, if you could ever find it again, it would still be absolutely fine, and it shouldn't have any issues keeping a tight water seal, which is pretty impressive. One, considering the fact that it's not a dive watch, and two, that it is, you know, it has a beautiful display back on there too. You can see the bracelet, although very articulated, it does have kind of a locking point, as you can see. So it's not going to be able to sit all the way flush or flat. It's always going to kind of have a bit of body to it, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but definitely something to mention, especially if you do have a smaller wrist. Now, in terms of the rest of the specs here, you get and kind of an integrated 24mm lug width, tapering H-link bracelet. It has a subtle taper from 24mm down to 22. It uses push pin connectors, which some of you won't be too thrilled with. But you know, they do the job. And then, yeah, a butterfly clasp, so there's no half links, so you kind of got to dial this thing in really perfectly. In my case, we'll see how it wears on the wrist right now. All right, man, this thing just it does some really cool things with the light, and I really dig that. Now, even on my 7¼ inch wrist, this thing looks pretty fully loaded, but you can see it's still absolutely wearable. Look at the height on that. Wears really nice, wraps really wonderfully around my wrist there. It just fits really nicely. Of course, up close, you're gonna think, oh wow, that looks pretty oversized, but that's a lot of lens distortion anyway. But you can see it does lay really nicely, and that nice kind of center high polished accent gives it almost kind of a, you know, a diamond back kind of snake-like bracelet appearance. This is really nice, and that dial, it just has a cool warm tone to it that you just have to see to appreciate, honestly. I'm not I think the camera probably makes it look a touch more high contrast than it actually is, because it does have just a, you know, I think at least when I look at it on my wrist versus in the little viewfinder, it has a touch more of a mocha tone, which I guess you can kind of gather when you get up really close to it. But honestly, like down here, where it's gonna just look like that really kind of that pale burst explodes. When I look at it with the naked eye, away, from the viewfinder, I catch a lot more of the mocha on it. So just something to consider. I think it wears really nicely. Is it a large watch? Yes, but I think the nice thing is, although the scale is large, the proportions are still nice. It has the wider lugs, which offset and make the watch head actually appear not as large. And then because it doesn't have a drastic taper, it also kind of, I guess you would say, anchors the visual weight really, really well. So with that said, let's go ahead and move into some lume shots. Although there's not a ton of lume on this bad boy, pretty much just be the hour and minute hands. Let's see how that goes, and then also do some low light transitions and closing thoughts. All right, we'll go ahead and hit the lights here. As you can see, although deep diving a diver, this is not. So with that, let's actually get on some low light transition, because what I like to do is really showcase what this thing is going to render like in less than optimal lighting, because you're not always going to be, out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to be coming in and outdoors, maybe walking underneath an overhang, spending time underneath the shade of a tree, or just your favorite automobile. So it's nice to kind of see how this thing is going to look in less than optimal lighting, to include very harsh high contrast lighting here, where we would typically be able to expose any type of factory finishing defects or whatnot. Here maybe just a little dust from the me doing the video, but you can see this thing is finished really, really beautifully. It's I wouldn't say it's like luxury level, but it's very, very well executed. Definitely has a sporty finish to go with those extra water resistance numbers there. So it does feel quite solid, quite refined, and just, I think it's a handsome watch. It's and another thing is that it's no homage, which is very cool, and I can't say that for every single watch that's on the channel, because so many of them take inspiration from other watches. Here, maybe there's an element or two, but really no more than that when I think of design inspiration on this one, guys. So closing thoughts, guys, on the wrist, it doesn't feel as large as the dimensions suggest. And honestly, a lot of those great details there are just so well executed to such a high level. You just get a lot of visual interest. There's so much to enjoy when you're kind of just glancing over at your wrist. And in terms of model variants, there's also a blacked out model as well as a blued out model, and that's more so about the case. So you can get this with a blue case and bracelet, or a black case and bracelet, which is pretty cool. I think I'd like to see kind of the blue dial, which may be too, I guess, predictable if they were to do the blue dial on this, but I think it would look really cool. Although this mocha, I feel like, is definitely quite iconic, if you will. I think it's like the most distilled option here, because again, it is such a generally original watch. I can't really fault them for keeping it quite original. So in terms of comparable models, guys, I'm not even going to try to compare this to anything, because it is such a wild card watch. Although it's really not that wild. It's definitely not a mild card, but this thing is a lot of fun, and I could actually see this being an everyday companion for somebody. Is it going to be a one watch collection type of watch? I don't think so. I think it's too quirky for that. But I think there's a lot of people that will love this. They're going to love the size, honestly. As much as we love smaller watches, big watches are still selling. There are brands that just make their name on selling large watches. And they're all doing pretty well. So, not everything is going to shrink down. Would I love to see something like this in a 39 millimeter? Absolutely. 20 millimeter lug tapering down to something like a 16. Yeah, I would absolutely dig that. But it probably wouldn't have the same character that it has. Some of these details might not shrink all the way down, or it might just get really expensive to produce them at those scales. So I can't really be too upset. But it's a really cool piece, guys. Bottom line, the more time, kind of like I mentioned, the more time I spend with it, you know, the more I like it. I really went into this review as seeing this as again, a very niche, kind of wild card type. But after spending some more time with it, you know, I can absolutely see this as being something that somebody enjoys wearing daily, you know, or paired perfectly for a weekend drive in your favorite little sporty car. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I know this won't be everybody's cup of tea, and I do appreciate NOVE sending this one out to the channel for review. So with that said, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked the video, please do hit like, and if you haven't already, please do subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.